Hey everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. In this video today I'm going to show you how to make a bush which grows from a child state to an adult state. From then it is going to start growing berries again from a child state to an adult state, all automatically. Let's get into it. I would also just like to say I am still learning Unity, so if I make a mistake, or if you have any tips and tricks for me, just let me know them down in the comments below. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to create a terrain in our hierarchy, so 3D object and terrain. This is perfect, one square is enough. If you already have a terrain, you don't need to worry about doing this part. From this terrain, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go to edit, and I'm just going to make a couple mountains, just so when it comes to it you can see that the bushes will change based off of the height of your terrain. Sorry for that. So here we go, we've got quite a lot of different heights here. From now we're going to go into our tag on the terrain. We're going to add a new tag, and we're going to call this terrain. We're also going to go into our layers, and we're going to create a new layer called terrain. Click back on your terrain in the hierarchy, and add your tag, and add your layer. From this, we're going to create an empty game object, and I'm going to drag this into the center of where I want my bushes to spawn. If you only want a small little area, don't do it as big. If you want a massive area, obviously make it huge. On that game object, I'm going to change the name to spawner 1, and I'm going to add a box collider. And from this collider, I'm going to change the size, and this is where your bushes are going to spawn. So I want mine to cover this whole mountain area here. That's right there. Extend it up, and there we go, that's perfect. So as you can see here, it will spawn everywhere inside of this box, and on this part here where it starts dipping down, it will not spawn. From this, we're going to add another empty game object inside of the spawner, and we're going to call this bushes. And then we're going to create another empty game object inside of bushes, and we're going to call this spawning items. Now let's get into the scripts. So I like to keep my project nice and neat, so I'm going to create a folder, call this scripts. I'm going to create another folder and call this prefabs. Inside of the scripts folder, I'm going to create another folder and call this bushes. And inside of the bushes folder, we're going to create a mono behavior script, and I'm going to call this spawn bush. Open that one up. There we go. For some reason it appeared on my other monitor. So inside of your spawn bush script, you're going to want to have a public game object. This is your bush prefab. I would also just like to say, alongside that we're here now, the bush prefab that I use in this tutorial I will provide in the description below, and you are able to use it in your own project. It's nothing big, it's just a simple little bush. We are going to need a private transform, and this is going to say our spawn area. We're going to need a private layer mask, just call that layer mask. We're going to need a public integer, and this is going to be called max bushes. We're going to need a public game object, spawn holder and another public game object, and this is going to be called our bush holder. And that's all that I can think of for the variables right now. So we're going to move on to our start function. Make a private start. And we're going to determine our spawn and layer mask. So our spawn area equal to get component transform. And that's it, because this script is going to be on the spawn area game object. Our layer mask is equal to layer mask dot get mask terrain. This is the layer that we gave our terrain earlier, so make sure it's the same name. And now we're going to need something to check how the bush is starting to grow. So what we're going to do is create a private enumerator, and I'm going to call this check bush status. And inside of our enumerator, we're going to do a while loop, because we want this to continuously run. We're going to do a yield return new wait for seconds. I'm going to give it 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, we're going to add a new private bool, and I'm going to call this is spawner. And we're going to do a if check. If exclamation mark is spawning, because we want to check if it is not spawning. And then we're going to make the bush there. So to do that, we now need to go to a void function. So private void, we're going to call generate bush. Inside of our void, we're going to do integer current bushes is equal to 0. And we need to see how many bushes we actually have in the map already. Because as you can remember, we have a max bushes amount. So we need to make sure that we don't currently have more than that. So we're going to do if current bushes is less than, is not equal to max bushes. Then we need to check our folders. So basically, once the bushes get made, it will go into spawning items, and it will be labeled as growing bush. And once it reaches its 100% stage of growing, it will then go into our bushes folder and turn into a berry bush. So we need to check both of these folders here to make sure that we have enough. So in our script, we're going to do for each transform, call that child in spawn area dot get child 0. If child dot name is equal to berry bush. Now this name is crucial to be the same as it is in future. I will again tell you when we do that. So if the name is the same, we're just going to do current bushes plus plus. So that's going to say if we have 3 children and 2 of them are called berry bushes, it's going to increase our current bushes by 2. We're now going to copy that and paste it below it, but instead of our spawn area, we're going to do our spawn holder, not transform this time, because it's not a child of anything. And we're going to change the name from berry bush to growing bush. Okay, so after it's done these for each loops, we're going to go below it again. And we're going to do if current bushes is less than max bushes. So now that it's gone through every single now that it's gone through every single child and checked how many bushes that we have, we're going to check that it's not at the max again. And now we're going to get the box collider size of our spawn area. So, box collider, we can just call this collider, is equal to spawn area dot bit component box collider, and that gets our collider. We need to get the collider size, so vector 3 collider size is equal to collider dot size. And we also need to get our collider center, so vector 3 dot collider center is equal to collider dot center. It's that simple. We're going to make it so is spawning is equal to true now, because we're spawning a bush. We're going to get a random position in our collider now, so it spawns at any random position. It's not just going to spawn in one place. So vector 3 random position is equal to new vector 3. Bring that down. We're going to do random dot range minus collider size dot x divided by 2, comma collider size dot x divided by 2. Outside of your brackets, you're going to do plus spawn area dot position dot x plus collider center, dot x bracket. And then for the y, we're going to get spawn area dot position dot y, and we're going to do plus 5f bracket, not semicolon, sorry. And then for the z, we can copy our random dot range and just change all the x's to z's, and get rid of that little comma at the end and add a semicolon. And this gets our random position within the collider. So below that, let's actually use a raycast now to scan where the terrain is. So we're going to do a raycast hit, and just call that hit. If physics, I can't spell, if physics dot raycast, and we're going to get our random position, comma vector 3 dot down, comma out hit, comma mathf dot infinity, comma layer mask. So basically what this is doing is sending a little raycast down because we increased our random position up by 5. So imagine we have a little bump in our terrain. The raycast is going to go up by 5, then it's going to shoot a little laser down to see when it hits our layer mask, which is the terrain. So as soon as it hits the terrain, it's going to continue with this. So inside of here, we're going to do another if check. We're going to do if dot transform dot compare tag is equal to terrain. So this is another check. I'm going to check if the terrain has the tag terrain, which is what we gave our terrain. We're going to do another variable. We're going to do a private game object. We're going to call this new bush, as we're creating a new bush. So new bush is equal to instantiate, in brackets, we're going to need our bush prefab. We're going to need the hit.point of the raycast. And then we're going to need dot identity. There we go. And end that off with a semicolon. Now we're going to do new bush again. dot transform dot position is equal to new vector 3 new bush dot transform dot position dot x, comma new bush dot transform dot position dot y. And depending on your prefab, it may clip into the ground. So if it does, increase this value here. So I'm going to do plus 0.15. And we're going to see how that is. If it clips into the ground, increase it a little bit. If it doesn't and it floats above the ground, then decrease this number. And to finish this line off, we're going to do new bush dot transform dot position dot x. Z, sorry. This gets our new bush position. And because it's a new bush and we want to start growing it, we're going to do new bush dot game object dot name is equal is equal to growing bush. And you might have guessed it already. This part here is crucial because, as you can see, in our for each loop that we done earlier, it checks for the child name of growing bush. We're going to change its parent now. As I said, it goes into the spawning items game object when it's growing, and it moves out of that when it's fully grown. So we're going to do new bush dot transform dot set parent. We're going to do spawn holder dot transform. New line, so new bush dot transform. No, sorry, we just set that already. So we're going to do is spawning is equal to false because we've just spawned it, and we're going to return. Outside of our if check, if it can't find terrain, we're just going to set is spawning to false again, so it can restart the whole thing again. Right, now that that works, we are going to go into our start function, and we're going to start quarantine, and we're going to do check bush status. So now there's that. And as you can see here, we made our enumerator, the check bush status, and we haven't actually done anything in the if check. So we're going to get rid of that little note there, and we're going to do our generate bush function. So in the start function, it's going to start the quarantine. This is going to run forever. So every 5 seconds, it's going to check if our ball is false. If it is, it's then going to generate a bush, and then obviously it's going to set the is spawning to true. There it is. It's going to set the is spawning to true, and it's going to spawn in the new bush. So if I am not mistaken, if you head back into your project, click on spawner 1, wait for everything to compile, you can drag your spawn bush script in, and you can see all your values there. So just to test it quickly, because I believe it should work, go into your prefabs. I'm going to create another folder called imported, and basically all I'm going to do now is double click on my imported, and I'm going to drag in my bush prefab. Again, this will be in the description below, you can use it for your own project. I'm going to drag the bush into the game. As you can see, it's nothing simple, just a normal little bush. Right click on it in the hierarchy, hover over prefab, unpack completely, go back into your prefabs folder. I'm now going to add a box collider to this bush, and I'm going to drag the bush from the hierarchy into my folder so it creates a little prefab. Brilliant. Go back onto your spawner 1, and you're going to drag your brand new bush prefab over to the bush prefab script. the max bushes, I at least want there to be, let's say 12 bushes is the max that can spawn in this area. The bush holder is obviously the spawning items, and the bush folder is the bushes. So, if we click on play, we're going to check if it does. To my knowledge, it should just spawn in random places. It's not going to start growing or anything. It's fine. Oh, no, there we go. See, it has spawned in spawning items. So up there, it has spawned now. There's one bush. There we go, there's a second bush, and it's spawned there. And as you can see, it is not just going on the flat land. It is choosing random areas. So this part here has spawned on a little incline going up the mountain. This one here, again, is spawned up there. There's some spawning down here. There's one spawning on the flattish part there. So that is working. Now we need to make it so it slowly grows. So to do that, we're going to have to open up go into your scripts folder again. We're going to create a new script, and this is going to be called mono behavior. This is going to be called berry bush. Double click on your berry bush and open up the script. Here we go. So there's quite a few more values for this one, and so we're going to need a public integer current berries. We're going to need a public integer called max berries. We're going to need a private float of max bush size. We're going to need a private float of max berry size. We're going to need a public float of our bush growth speed, and I'm going to give this a default value of 0.15. I'm going to need a public float value, believe it or not, of our berry growth speed, and I'm going to give this a value of 0.1. We're going to need a private float berry progress, and we're going to need a private float, believe it or not, bush progress. We are also going to need a public game object of our berry prefab, and we're going to need a private game object similar to the new bush in our spawn bush script, but we're just going to call this berry. So let's get into it. We're going to create a private start function. In here we are going to determine how big we want the bush to be. So max bush size is equal to random dot range, and we're going to random this from the transform dot local scale, as you may have a different prefab to me, .x. So basically what this is just doing is, no matter what prefab you have, it's going to get the bush's size. So we got the local scale x. We're going to do transform dot local scale, and the max amount I want it to increase by is 0.8. I don't want there to be a huge difference between the two, but local scale dot x, sorry, there we go. We don't need to get the y or z, because in the future when we increase the bush's size, we increase all the values together, so we only need to get the x size. Max berries is equal to, I want there to be a random range between the both of them, so I want there to be between 5 berries and 10 berries. we're going to do git component transform, and we're going to now change the local scale equals new vector 3 0, 0, 0. So now we're going to change the size when it spawns to 0, so it's a child state. And we're going to change our berry progress to 0%, because we don't want to start growing berries yet. So after our start function, we're going to actually need to start growing the bush. So we're going to do a private IEnumerator, and this is going to be called grow bush. In our grow bush, we're going to do a while loop again. While transform.local scale .x is less than max bush size. We're going to do transform.local scale plus equal to new vector 3, and we're going to do growth bush growth speed, comma bush growth speed, comma bush growth speed. Outside of your brackets, do multiply symbol time dot delta time. So what this is basically doing here, we are increasing our transform scale by our bush growth speed multiplied by real life time. So basically, if our bush growth speed was set to 1, then every 1 second it is going to increase by that. So your bush will grow within seconds, which is not realistic. Inside of here, we're going to do a yield return null. Outside of your while loop, we're going to do transform.local scale, and just to be sure, we're going to do new vector 3 max bush size, comma max bush size, comma max bush size. So once it's finished, we're just gonna double check and change the local scale to the max bush size. Then we're going to do bush progress is equal to 1f, so it's 100%. And that is everything that we need for the grow bush. So in our start function, we can now call this, so start coroutine grow bush. Perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to do a little bush status so we can check if it's fully grown or not. So we're going to do a public IEnumerator this time, because we are going to call this function from our spawn bush script. So public IEnumerator check bush status, and in here we are going to need a game object, and this is going to be our bush folder, because if the bush is gonna be at 100%, we need to change its parent to the bush folder, which is what I mentioned earlier. So inside of here, we're going to need a while through loop, yield return new wait for seconds. We're going to do every 5 seconds again. If bush progress is equal to 1%, well 1f, sorry, which in my case is 100%. We are going to we're going to do the transform dot set parent, and this is going to be our bush folder dot transform. And now we're also going to need to change the name, because it's not a growing bush anymore. Transform dot name is equal to berry bush, and as you can remember, in our spawn bush script we are looking for berry bush and growing bush, so make sure they are the same. From here we are also going to need to call our new coroutine. So go down to your generate bush in your spawn bush script, just above where you set is spawning to false, we're going to do new bush dot get component berry bush dot start quarantine. And because we're calling the quarantine from a different script, we're going to have to rewrite this again. So new bush dot get component berry bush dot check bush status. This is why we needed to make this public. And as I said, we need to put a game object in there, so we need to put our bush folder, and that is it. So now that will call our enumerator. From that, we are, if it's 100%, we need to start growing berries on the bush. So we're going to create a private enumerator again, and this is going to be called grow berry. And inside of our grow berry enumerator, we're going to do a if check if current berries is less than max berries. And we're also going to check if the berry progress is equal to 0. If it is, we're going to it's equal to 0, not 1. We're going to do max berry size, just like the bush, random dot range. And you don't want the berries to be the whole size, because else it's going to be bigger than the actual bush itself. So we're going to do 0.1 to 0.19. I reckon that's good numbers. We are going to get the random position inside of the bush now. So just like the bush, how we got the random position inside of our spawn area, we're going to want the berries to grow randomly around the bush. So vector 3 random position is equal to new vector 3. Bring that down, and we're going to do random dot range. Again, this is exactly the same as the berry, but the bush, sorry, just with the berries now. So minus transform, because we're changing its own scale. Dot local scale dot x divided by 2, comma transform dot local scale dot x divided by 2 outside of the brackets, similar to last time, plus transform dot position dot x. This time we're going to need to do it with the y as well, so copy and paste that twice, change the value of the second one to a y, and change the value of the third one to z, z, z. Get rid of that bracket there, so you should have 3 random ranges x, y, and z on each value here. If you do, end it off with a semicolon. We're going to need a bit more though. We're going to need a continent, or however you say that word, I don't actually know. We're going to need to get the random rotation out. So random rotation is equal to random dot rotation. That was difficult. Now we're going to need to spawn in the berry, just like the bush. So berry, just like our new bush variable, from spawn bush script. Berry is equal to instantiate berry prefab, comma, random position, comma, random rotation. That creates the berry. We're just going to do a little check here, if berry is equal to null. So for if for some reason it hasn't instantiated the berry, we're just going to yield break from this quarantine, or else it's going to give you a lot of errors. Berry.transform.parent is equal to transform. We're going to do berry.get component transform dot local scale is equal to new vector 3 vector 3, 0, 0, 0. There we go. If you get this error here with the vector 3s, is because I've just accidentally added system.numerics. All you need to do is go to the top of your script, get rid of that using system.numerics, and you're all good. From now, we're going to final push of the script. We are almost there. So we're going to do the berry progress. Progress is now equal to 100% because we have changed the size to 0, we've instantiated the berry, we've got the random position, it's done. Outside of our if loop, we are going to do an else. So if one of these are wrong, it's going to go to here, and we're going to do yield return null, just to make sure yield break. So if it goes wrong, we'll break from this grow berry function, so then it can still continue and try and grow another berry. Outside of that, we're going to do a while loop. So while our berry progress is is greater than 0. So in our case, whilst it's around 1%, and berry.transform.local scale.x is less than max berry size. Max berry size. Berry.transform.local scale is plus equal to new vector 3. Berry growth speed, comma berry growth speed. This is similar to the bush growth. Berry growth speed, and outside of the brackets, multiply by time dot delta time. We're going to do a yield return null. And for the final bit of the script, unless if I have messed up somewhere, we are going to do the same as with the bush. If berry is not equal to null, we're going to do berry.transform.local scale is equal. You can just copy this part here, duplicate it down there, change the berry growth speed to max berry size, get rid of the multiply by time dot delta time, add a semicolon. Berry progress needs to go back to 0 so it can create a new berry, and current berries is plus equal to 1 because it has just made a new berry. And there we go. Now we just need to actually call this function here. So in our, where do we add it? In our check bush status, above the set parent, we are going to do start quarantine grow berry and end that off. And there we go. That should be the end of it. So let's go back into our project. There is a couple things that we need to set up here before testing it. In our prefabs, we're going, well, in our hierarchy, we're going to create a new 3D object, add a sphere, and we're going to call this berry. This is something simple. This will not be included in the description because you can easily set this up. Just follow what I do. Create a new material, call this red, change the base map to red, drag the material on, and this is what the berry looks like. We're going to go into our prefabs, drag the berry into here, and we can now delete it. So in our bush prefab, double click on it, zoom over to your bush. We need to add a new component. This is going to be our berry bush script. So there we go. Every time that we drag it down, we're going to see current berries, max berries, and see our original values of the bush growth speed and the berry growth speed. Double click on your bush again, and we're going to drag our new berry prefab over to the berry prefab. So every time the bush spawns, the berry prefab's going to be there. You don't need to worry about changing these two values here, as in the script we created a random value for the max berries. So now let's test it out. Start your game. As you can see, we have got 0 errors in the console. As you can see, it has now created a bush. It slowly grows. If you want it to be slower, just decrease the bush growth speed. Once it has got to 100%, as you can see, it has now come out of the spawning items game object, and it has been called berry bush, not growing bush. And now, as you can see, berries are starting to grow inside of here at random positions. So this bush here has got max berries of 8. It currently has 5 berries, as you can see. Berry 1, berry 2, berry 3, berry 4, berry 5, berry 6, berry 7. So obviously it's created more since I've said it. There we go. It is creating all the berries. Unfortunately, some of them have gone underground. That's okay, because as you can still see, there are berries inside of your bush now. So 1, 2, I'll just look at this. We have 8 current berries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. It's not creating any more because the max berries, it's reached it. You can't get any more. So, one final check. Max bushes 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 bushes are all made. They have all grown to the adult stage. As you can see, there are no more bushes being added into your spawning items because it has reached the max bushes, which is great. Everything works. If I click on a random bush, the max berries are different to this bush here. That's 7, that's 6, that's 7, that's 7, that's 6, that's 7, 7, 8, 6, 7, 7, 7, 8. It's all random. And one final check, which I can see here already. The bushes are different sizes. Chop that one over to this one here. Obviously, because it was on higher ground, it's floating. But as you can see, they are different sizes, which also make the berries different sizes. Fantastic. That is everything for this video. If you want a new tutorial, or if you would like to show me, or want me to show you how to make something else, let me know in the comments below. This is easy to add into your own project. You can add multiple bushes just by adding a list of bush prefabs. Again, thank you for watching this video. As I have mentioned before, I am also new to Unity, so if I have made any mistakes, or if you just want to give me a hand and let me know some useful facts, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.